Hi guys, welcome to my channel Vinyl Beauty, or welcome back. I'm Debbie if you don't know me, and today's video is going to be a look at all of my Halloween and spooky eyeshadow palettes. I did think about like curating this down and just doing a top 10, but it's so difficult for me to choose. I just love Halloween and spooky season, and so a lot of my collection is from that time of year. I think I've got around 400 eyeshadow palettes in total in my collection, and around 50 of them are spooky themed, and that's what we're going to look at today. I'm not going to do it in any particular order really. I'm going to try and batch the brands together so that we're not going all over the place, but other than that they're not in a preference order or anything like that, because I just find it so difficult. It's like choosing between your children, or in my case choosing between your cats, because I have no children. But anyway, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to show you all of the palettes. I'm not going to swatch them. It's not something that I really do with my palettes anyway, but it will just take so long because I've got so many. So I think we should just get straight into it. Okay, we're going to start off with Makeup Revolution and I Heart Revolution. Now, I don't really use these palettes anymore, but if you've been around these parts for a while, you'll know that I don't declutter anything. I like to keep them around for kind of nostalgia purposes, but also I'm a collector, so I just love having these things in my collection really. They're a bit of makeup history from the past for me. This one is beautiful. So this was in their Flawless range, is it? Yeah, Forever Flawless. And this is the Enchanted palette. I love the palettes that were in this tin packaging, but I just think Makeup Revolution doesn't have the best quality in the world, does it? But I can make this work. But what I do love about this one is the murky tones that are in here. It is absolutely beautiful, but it's not very vivid. You've really got to pack it on the eyes. As I say, you can use some tips and tricks to make it work, but I've got palettes that perform way better. But as I say, the colour story is beautiful. I've also got the Curses and Hexes palette, and this is from I Heart Revolution. Now this one, I love the packaging of. I think the packaging is beautiful. I got the Love Spells as well, which is more of a red pink, but I haven't shown you that one because I've got so many to go through. I think this is more Halloween in any case. And this one opens more so like a book. And it has an interesting colour story, I think. Again, the quality is like, yeah, it's typical Makeup Revolution quality, to be honest. You can make it work. It's not the most pigmented in the world, but the colour story, I think, is really fun. And then the last two I've got from Makeup Revolution are really special to me, and I would never declutter these. Not that I would declutter anything, but these are special to me. So these are the Nightmare Before Christmas palettes. And this one is the Sally palette. And they were dual-sided, so it opens like a book. It's stuck together, and that's the shades inside that one. So there's a hell of a lot of shades, quite a lot of repetition in there, but I do love these because of what they are, because it's Nightmare Before Christmas, and I just think they did the packaging so well. The mattes are pretty good in this, probably a lot better than normally Makeup Revolution are. The shimmers are so, you know, they're just typical shimmers, nothing exciting like we used to do these days, but yeah, it's nice. And as I say, just love the packaging on it, and it's a bit of a collector's piece. Not too many people have this around, I don't think, anymore. Then I've also got the Jack palette in the same packaging, the same design. This one I prefer because it's got the colourful side and the neutral side, and there's a red shade in this one called Sandy Claus on this side, and it's a really good red. I'm fussy with red, but that works really well. But yeah, I think this was the better of the two colour story wise. Next up, I've got a couple of palettes from BH Cosmetics. So I bought both of the palettes in their Halloween release, probably I think it's about 3 years ago, maybe 4, time goes so fast. But this is the Drop Dead Gorgeous palette, and this is the full-on crazy version of it. This is really good quality. Like, this will rival any of your indie brands that we're used to now. The red is a true red in here, and there are some pressed glitters, but they're not the sort of pressed glitters I wouldn't wear. They're very finely milled, and they go on the eyes really pretty. But it's a rainbow palette really, but with more of a hint towards red and black and Halloween vibes. But I also picked up the small one that came out at the same time, which was the Little Bit Psycho, which I probably didn't need, but I'm always on the lookout for reds and blacks and silvers, and I just thought this was a very small curated down version of the bigger one, which I thought would be great for travel, but I've never travelled with it. But I think I do prefer this one because there's less options. I know exactly what sort of look I'm going to get out of this, and as I say, I love these tones the most out of the big one in any case. So next up we've got Peachy Queen. Now I don't know what's happened to them because nobody talks about them anymore, but I used to love their quality. And this one is the We're All Mad Here palette, which is obviously the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. My ring lights are really reflecting off that packaging. But I don't know if you'd really call this Halloween, but it's definitely got a mystical sort of look to it. I think it's perfect shades for Halloween. What I love about this one, the formula is absolutely bomb, but also the shades are kind of a little bit off-toned of your typical shades. So there's some unique tones in here that I do dip into, and I do love it. There's not one shade in here that I don't like. I think it's such a really beautiful colour story, and I love £12 palettes. That's my sweet spot for palettes. So yeah, one of my favourites in my collection and always will be, I think. And then I've got their Spirit Board palette. Now I wanted this one for the longest time and I've never used it. Now you'll find that's a little bit of a theme to some of these. I've got some that I haven't used because some of them I bought a long time ago and just they're a bit old now to use, but I don't want to chuck them. And some are reasonably newer. I got them after Halloween last year, and so plan to use them this year. But this one got to be about 4 years old, I think, but it's really unique. It's got super big pans. It's the sort of pans that you used to get in Give Me Glow. I love big pans. I don't know what it is because I never hit pan on an eyeshadow, but I just love the fact that it's got big pans in it. Some of them you could probably use as blush, like that channeling. Haven't done that, probably should do that because that's beautiful. But it's a sort of murky, dingy kind of colour story, obviously based mainly around on navy and purple and red, but yeah, I think it's really, really pretty, really special. I don't know why I haven't used it. When I got it, I think I just didn't know what to do with it. And probably my makeup skills have improved a lot since then. So it's probably still safe to use on the eyes. I use palettes forever, really. As long as it's powder, it won't go off, I don't think. So yeah, probably should do a look with that this year. Next up, we've got Jolie Beauty, which is UK-based indie brand. I only got one palette from them. This is the Carnival. I'm really interested in the Spellbound collection that they brought out this year. Just haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. Trying to be good because I've bought a lot of things lately, not just makeup but clothes and all sorts, so I need to rein it in, but I will get that at some point. But this is your typical Halloween colours. There are some pressed glitters in here. There's 3 pressed glitters, which I could definitely live without because I don't use pressed glitter, but it's all of the tones that you would want for kind of your pumpkin patch kind of cozy vibes, right through to your witchy tones and deep mysterious purples. There's so much you can do with it. And there's a couple of really beautiful duochromes in here. If they'd replaced all of the glittery shades with that formula, this palette would be absolutely bomb because the mattes are really good. They perform really well. Probably not the most pigmented in my collection, but they build up really nicely, blend nicely. As I say, it's just spoiled by having pressed glitters, which they keep putting in their palettes, and I don't know who enjoys pressed glitters in palettes. I know none of my friends or myself seem to, so, but they must have a reason why they keep putting them in there. They do look beautiful when you look at a palette and make it sort of stand out when you look at it, but they're just not great on the eyes in my opinion. But yeah, it's a beautiful colour story nonetheless. Sticking with UK based brands, these are really special. I've got the Hocus Pocus Regain Focus from P. Louise. Now these have like a little heart-shaped locket. I've already taken that off just to make it a bit easier, but they open like a book. They're going to be really difficult to show you, but you've got one side that's got oranges and reds in this one, and then the other side we've got purples and greens. I think this one, no, I think the other one is my favourite. I've got another one of these as well. The other one is called the Droplet of Magic. These both came out last year. I think one of them was in their budget box, which I don't subscribe to, but you could just buy them and they're available now. And there's a lot of shadow for your money. They're not that expensive at all and they're really good formula. Yeah, this one is definitely my favourite because I love the reds in here and the purples. They've got an amazing formula, P. Louise. I think you can get these for around about £70 for both of them, so it's a lot of shadow for your money. Really good performing shadow in a beautiful package. They're bulky, but they're meant to be. They're kind of like a spell book theme. And that's the other side, and that's really pretty as well, isn't it? I love murky greys mixed with teal. It's black and white. Yeah, this one's gorgeous. Okay, we'll move on to Colourpop now. I've got 4 Colourpop palettes I would consider Halloween vibes. So I've got the Gather Round Sisters palette, which was the first Hocus Pocus palette. If you've been around here for a while, you'll remember how utterly heartbroken I was to not be able to get this in the first round. It sold out like lightning fast. It was when Colourpop just couldn't keep anything in stock, and I was so sad. And I don't know why I was so sad really, because it's okay, like the colour story's alright. It's not like one that I reach for on the daily or anything. It's, yeah, it's alright, but I just really wanted it because I love the movie. It's got a pressed glitter in there. There's some kind of grungy greens and purpley tones in there, but there's a lot of neutrals as well. It doesn't stand out in my collection because I've got so many other things, but I love it because of its tie-in with the movie, and there's a lot of palettes in my collection that pull on my heartstrings because of their link to an IP that I'm very fond of. I've also got the Hocus Pocus 2, and I think this is much better in terms of colour story for me. I think they did an amazing job of this. The only thing I wish is that they'd kept to the same size as the Gather Round Sisters palette. But this is beautiful because it's got all of your typical Halloween tones, but all in columns, so you can make a monochromatic look really easily. You've got a lighter shade, a deeper shade, and then a shimmer to go with it. Obviously you can mix and match them all as well. But yeah, this one's truly beautiful. And I love like the imagery as well, just everything about it. It comes in a really nice box where you can see this through it, and yeah, it's really special. I've also got the Haunted Mansion palette, so the Welcome Foolish Mortals is the actual name of the palette. I bought mine last year. This has been re-released this year. To be honest with you, I think the Super Shocks and the lipsticks that came with this collection I liked more than the palette. I've got one of the lipsticks on right now, and it's called Witcher Ride, and then I've just tapped a melt lipstick on top. But yeah, I love these deep lipsticks. I bought two of them. I didn't buy the neutral one, but the two deeper ones were great. But anyway, this is about the palette. So this is very cool toned and very cool, I think. I do like the colour story. Colourpop's formula is just, it's okay. I think it's a step up from Makeup Revolution, but it's not as good as the indie brands that we love. But obviously you can get a good look out of Colourpop. It's solid, you know what you're getting, but it's a step up from drugstore quality in my eyes. They've got this formula in there that's like got that bit of glitter in. It's not pressed glitter, but it's kind of still glittery, that I don't love too much. But I do love the sort of cool tone taupiness of this one. It's not just greys, it's got that other sort of tone of like grey, where it's sort of almost headed towards a taupey brown. And obviously it's got some purples and this beautiful pop of teal. So it is a nice colour story, and I'm really happy I own it. My absolute favourite though of the ones I'm going to show you from Colourpop is this one, which is controversial, isn't it, because a lot of people hated this, but this is the Nightmare Before Christmas palette, of course. This palette committed the crime of not having an Oogie Boogie green in it, but you've got to judge it on what it is in my eyes. Whenever I get a palette, I don't kind of think what could it have been, but I kind of judge it on what it is. Because otherwise you're just always going to be disappointed, because you're looking at somebody else's vision and wishing it was your vision, if you know what I mean. So the colours that they've chosen for it are gorgeous, and I do think it does suit the movie, and I love the size of it. I wish they did more like this. Again, it's a 12 pan, but it's the smaller pans, and there's a shade in here, what's it called, Dear Friend. Looks the most boring shade in the palette, but there's just something about the tone of that one. It's lovely as a transition. I've dipped into this palette numerous times for that shade, and also the duochrome that's called Frog's Breath that's underneath it is gorgeous as well. Haven't really played with the brighter tones. I've gone more for sort of this murky end of the palette, but yeah, I just think the packaging was gorgeous on it as well, with the glitter on it and Jack and Zero on there. It's just really special. Next up I've got Nomad. Nomad Cosmetics is a travel-based indie brand, of course, one of my favourite brands in the entire world. I've got a lot of their palettes, not all, but a lot. And I've got the two spooky ones. So this one is the Haunted Europe. Love me some lenticular packaging, and this is really special. I love the background on this palette. It's so kind of grey and yeah, like a tombstone almost. And you've got your pumpkin patch side of the palette here, and then you've got more a spooky sort of aesthetic on the other side. But the tones in this, again, particularly on this side, this kind of row here or column, really special. They're a little bit different. The shimmers aren't the most amazing in this one. They do need building up or a bit of help with glitter glue to really make them shine. And they haven't changed the formula, but they have brought this one back this year. But it's perfectly acceptable. It's just not as good as what they're putting out now. But yeah, it's a beautiful colour story, and it's like two 9-pan palettes put together, but that you could play in both sides and mingle together. I tend to see it just as like two separate palettes when I look at the colour story though. But yeah, it's super gorgeous. I've also got that Ghost Town USA palette, which again has got the lenticular packaging, hopefully you can see. This one you can tell before even dipping into it, which I have never dipped into it, I have to confess, that the shimmers are better because you can see like the glisten in them more, so they just don't look as flat somehow. But again, you've got two palettes really. You've got the sort of more murky, sort of cool tone greeny grey side, and then you've got the warm tone side. And I was going to buy the Blend Bunny Longing palette, and then I remembered I'd got this, and I think it covers on this side all of what I would want out of that palette, so I decided not to get that. But it's got some gorgeous tones. I love like that copper penny shade on this side, so I do want to play with this spooky season. It just came too late into my collection to really make it relevant to film with it last year. So yeah, definitely want to film with it this year. It's gorgeous. Next up we've got my palettes from Shroud, or Strobe as they were originally known as. So you may say that the whole vibe of this brand is spooky. They don't seem to be a brand anymore. Nobody seems to know what's happened to Chloe the owner, or what's happened to the brand, but still one of my favourites in my collection is this palette, which was, when they were Strobe, the Creepy Cute. I've spoken about this palette so many times. It's all matte, it's a pastel palette, which I don't normally go for pastels, but there's just something about it. I love Tombstone, the grey that's in here. This black void is one of the best in my collection. Still dip into the palette for that. And I've never come across a better blue than this Cold Shoulder, a pastel blue. That's just, because I want my pastels to be still saturated with colour, although being pastel. I don't want them to be wishy-washy and to blend away to nothing. I want them still to be almost like chalky, but sort of almost creamy as well, and that's what these are. Just really special formula, really great palette. So when they brought out the Creepy Cute 2, I had to have that, of course, and that's a lot more vibrant, more rainbow kind of shades, but still pastel, just a bit deeper. Pastels for people like me who's not really a pastel lover, I think, and it was great to see a shade extension for the Creepy Cute. They did bring out the Creepy Cute 1, the first one, in this size. I didn't buy it because I'd already got that one, but I do prefer this size actually. It's nice to have less wasted space in the palette. I've also got the two palettes that Betty Jean did with the brand, and the first one has Beauty Bean X Shroud on it, which was her channel name at the time. She's now obviously Batty Bean. And when this came out, I was just like, this is just such a strange colour story. What am I going to do with it? But I've loved playing with this one, and it's so her as well. But my favourites in this one are that Derry shade. It's super dark and kind of aubergine, plummy. Always, I think with Shroud, the colours come out a little bit deeper than you might expect as well. So it's super, super dark, but good. That Trapper shade, that kind of murky sort of baby poo kind of shade. Trapper is gorgeous. The shimmers are really pretty and duochromey, but they're not like the emollient shadows that are in palettes so many times now. These are proper shimmers that are easy to work with, that don't crease. I love this brand and I love the formula. Of the two palettes though, I think the Halloween was better in terms of colour story. This just sums up Halloween in a palette, doesn't it? It's all the colours you think of when you think of Halloween. And this shade, Black Flame, is just amazing. It's green to like a purple to a black, and on the eyes it's just so stunning. I've got nothing like it in my collection, but the oranges are super vivid and bright as well. And this shade, Ghoulish, is a shimmer and it's like a iridescent toppery shade. It's just a really special palette. I know a lot of people rate this one really highly in their Halloween and spooky palette collections and bring it out, you know, regularly at this time of year, and for me it really sums up the season. It's one of my favourites. Okay, next up we're going to talk about Luna Beauty. Now I love Luna Beauty. Where are they? What's happening with Luna Beauty this year? Because we've not had too many releases, have we, this year? I'd love to see more. I did buy the Moonshroom palette. You've not seen me play with it on camera, but I do own it and I love it. But I think this one, although it wasn't really supposed to be, I don't think, a Halloween release. I can't remember if it came out of Halloween or not, but the Siren Sunset, I think, has got all the colours of Halloween. So I think sirens were a little spooky, right? but the colour story is definitely spooky. And I feel with this palette is where Manny branched into colour a lot more. He's very into his neutrals, isn't he? And he looks great in them, and you know, that's what his brand was really all about. You know, a lot more muted tones of colour. But this has got some proper vibrant colours in it, and deep colours, jewel tone colours, and some really gorgeous duochrome, multi-chrome shades that just glide on the eyes. And again, they're not tacky shades, they're not putty, they're just really, really nice to work with, particularly if you've got older eyes like I do. I mean, I'm 56, nearly 57. I've got to be careful now what textures I put on my lids if I don't want to look all, you know, like crepe paper basically. But these wear really well, they look really vivid. I was so impressed when I got this palette and the lipsticks that came with it. And as always, his packaging is just so beautiful. Like this raised moon that he always has going on. Love this. But I think even more so than that, my favourite from the brand has to be this one, and it is for a lot of people as well, the Moon Spell. When this came out and he did the reveal video for it, I just gasped, honestly. I was just like, the packaging is just genius. It is like a book. It comes out of a sleeve, and then the actual palette itself looks like a spell book, and it's just so beautiful. It's very difficult to show well on camera because it's got this reflective gold background. This is what I'm saying about his colours were a lot more muted when he started, because this isn't nearly so vibrant as the Siren Sunset palette, but there is a lot of colour in here, and I love that every name of the shades are all named after witches. He really stuck with the theme. And I remember when he revealed this palette just how much joy it was for him, because he loves witches, and a lot of the references in here are from his favourite TV show character, witches. So yeah, it's really, really special. I did a multiple looks video with this, but it's way old. I really want to play with it again. I've not done in many, many years since it came out really, but still absolutely love it. And I just wish you would go back to this 15 pan size as well. I think it's perfection. I do also own the Moonspell Volume 2, and it is gorgeous, same sort of packaging, but it's bigger, and he changed labs at this point. So it was a US lab that he was using for the Moonspell 1, and then he went to a China lab, which is not a problem, but the formula is definitely different. Not unworkably different, but it's definitely noticeably different in terms of like a bit more harder press. You've got to work harder to get a good look out of it. And I think I prefer the Moonspell 1, but I love the colours in this one because I love reds, I love black, I love purple, and yeah, it's really pretty. I just wish he'd stuck to the same size format. I don't think we needed an extra row. I think it would have been nice if they would have stacked together like books on your shelf and in the same size, but that's just my OCD because I like everything to all like look aesthetically pleasing when it's together. But yeah, it's still a beautiful palette. I wouldn't be sad if he brought another one of these out, and don't think it's going to happen now. It's too late, isn't it? But maybe next year we can hope for it. Next up, I've got Gourmand Girls. I've got all three of their kind of spooky palettes in this format. So this one's the Spooked. So this is in collaboration with Doodles by the Bunny, as a lot of their palettes are. And this has got a really good formula to it. I remember doing a collab video with my friend Kerry K, I'm sure you will know who I mean, and we did a palette bingo, I think, or we just chose our favourite shades in the palette to do a Halloween, like halfway to Halloween in sort of April kind of video. And I had so much fun playing with this. I think she thought I would use the red, so like she stayed away from the red, and I didn't. I'm sure I used more like the purple or something, but purple and the green I think, but the green's super beautiful. It's an interesting colour story because you've got like all the harvesty kind of pumpkin-y tones, like the more fall colours, but then you've got all of the more vampy kind of dark tones as well, and some really interesting contrast. I do love with Gourmand Girls that they always put a black in a palette, because black can really change up a look and give you that depth and intensity that you want. They quite often put a white in as well. This one's got both, and a really great formula. I've also got the Nightshade palette, which I don't think was necessarily a Halloween palette, but I'm kind of calling it one. I think it's got Halloween shades. It's Deadly Nightshade, right? You know, it's still spooky vibes to me. This one's really interesting as well because you've got light to dark with purples and greens, and the duochrome, what's that one called, Hellebore. Oh, that one's so beautiful, that green to purple. But there's some really gorgeous shimmers and lots of different depths and intensities in the mattes, and as I say, brilliant formula as well. And very recently I picked up the Haunted palette. They had a sale on this. I picked it up for £16, which definitely helps because the shipping is quite expensive for Gourmand Girls. I think it cost me more to ship it than it did to buy it, but yeah, this is beautiful as well. It's got a bit more murkiness to it. The shade I'm really looking forward to playing with is this one. What's it called? Supernatural. I just love those sort of almost like dried blood red kind of shades. Love that. I love the murky greens. There are a couple of greens that look very similar, which I think it would have been nice if one or the other of those were different. And the two yellows are quite similar, which is why I didn't buy it last year. But I'm such a completionist and I always wanted to have all three of these palettes. I think they'll work really well together. And again, it's lovely packaging. I just love this format when they do these. What are they, 14? Yeah, 14 pans. But I just love the fact that they're all the same shape and size as well. And then I've got the Calavera palette, which was their Day of the Dead palette, which was a tribute to the owner Christina's grandparents, and such a cool theme, and it's a lot bigger than she normally puts out. This is 25 shades. It's what I've got on my eyes right now because I'm working on a multiple looks video. So I wasn't going to buy too many Halloween themed palettes this year because I wanted to pick up the Melt Universal Monsters collection, and I wanted to pick up the two Glamlight ones, the Halloween 2 and the Trick or Treat. So I knew I was going to spend a lot. And I've also been buying some other things as well. Clothes, I've been decluttering clothes. So I was like, I can't buy too many. And then I saw this and I was like, all bets are off, I've got to have it. I just love it. I love that it's got the sort of darker corner here and then the lighter here. So you've got that depth of tone, you know, the light to the dark to really create contrast in a look. You've got a black, you've got a white. There's not too many shimmers either. I prefer a matte heavy palette. And the shimmers that are there are the type that you could sort of pack over the top of the mattes and change the look of the mattes. Particularly these two, you could definitely do that with those. I think you could get opacity with them, but you could just tap them on gently and get a bit more of a glittered effect, which is what I've done in the centre of my lid there. But you've got some neons at this edge here. I mean, there's just so many possibilities for this palette. You could use it any time of year. I mean, it would even work for springtime with some of the pastels, but for me it was all about kind of the more spooky, darker sort of side over here. But just thought the colour story and the whole theming behind it was just super beautiful. I just had to have it. Right guys, I'd say we're about 2/3 of the way through, maybe just over halfway through. I've got a lot more still to show you. This one's a favourite in my collection. This is the LA Splash Classic Horror. That's the sleeve that it comes in. I always keep the sleeves. And this is like pin-up art of Universal Monsters, and it's just so special. The art goes onto the back as well. I bought this with all of the lipsticks that it came with. The lipsticks were fantastic as well. And this was really the first horror palette that I bought. It's all matte. Some of the shades are great, some are like a bit dry and don't perform the best, but honestly it just gives me so much joy playing with this. I don't know what it is about it. Every Halloween since I bought it, I've done looks with it. It's not Halloween unless I play with this palette. I'll do it again this year. It'll probably be the last Halloween video that I film. I just can't not do it. I just love it. I love, like, again, the tones are just slightly off. It's got some unusual tones to these shades, and I don't normally favour an all matte palette, although I do love majority mattes in my palettes. I do normally want both shimmers and mattes, but there's just something special about this. You can always bring something else in anyway, but I generally have just done matte looks with it and always enjoyed what I've created with it. So looking forward to playing with it again this year. I've got one palette from Cosmic Brushes that I would consider a spooky palette. It wasn't really a Halloween palette, but it came out at Halloween time. It's the Gothic palette. And this is gorgeous because it's everything you would want tonally for a purple palette to be, because you've got kind of the more warm tone and cool tone purples. You've got depth in there. You can do some quite neutrally looks with it. If you just put like those two shades together, you've got quite a neutral look, or you can go super deep and dark and vampy, which is what I did when I did my video on this. I remember using this because I had this very same necklace on and I did a very vampy, very deep and dark purple look with it. Absolutely loved it. I wish I'd do more palettes again in a 12 pan because I love this. It's the only one of theirs that's this size. They're normally 20 shades, but I think this is perfect, particularly for a more monochromatic style palette. I do hear they've got a Halloween release coming out, so I don't know when that's going to be, but their last one, The Undergrowth, was beautiful, so I can't wait to see what they've got for us if they are bringing out a Halloween one. I've got 2 palettes from Bella Beauty Bar. I would love to own more. I'd love to have the 2 most recent ones, the Poison Garden and the Vamp, but I don't own them. But I do have this, which is the Strange and Unusual, which is the non-licensed version of the Beetle Juice collection for them, or Beetle Juice palette. I've got their older formula, so the pans aren't removable in this one. That doesn't bother me. I don't create like my own palettes, really build your own kind of palettes, so it doesn't matter to me. The formula is still fantastic, so I wonder what they could have done to improve on it, because this is amazing. I love both the mattes and the shimmers. There's some really special shimmers in here, and a lot of looks and a lot of scope, and I think it really covers the colours of the movie so well. And yeah, I think it's my favourite of the 2. As I say, I own 2 from the brand. The other one that I own is the Recently De-Influenced, this one here. When I saw the packaging for this when it was first sneak peeked, I thought it was so cool of an idea, you know, with your ring light there and kind of a vampy kind of, well, she looks like a vampire, doesn't she? She's got all blood like coming out of her mouth, but to be like de-influenced, like you've been cancelled, I just thought it was such a good like play on words for it, and yeah, cool. This one's sort of a palette of 2 halves for me. You've got a really warm side to it and then a bit cooler side. Again, really cool colour story, some really special shimmers in here. And again, this isn't removable pans, but it doesn't matter to me, and I think it's a fabulous formula. I've used both of these palettes only once, so I'd love to play with these again this year, depending on what time we have really, because I'm running out of time. I didn't get on with it this year, but I would love to play with this on camera. So I've saved probably my favourite 3 brands for eyeshadow formula wise in my collection. I've saved for last, and you guys know I love Give Me Glow. This is the Haunted Pumpkin. It's massive. I love the fact that it's massive. I hate that they've gone to these little small pans now. It just doesn't feel like the brand anymore to me. I know it's wasteful because you're never going to use it all, but there was just something about it, and I just love the whole creation of this palette is kind of weird, isn't it? Like kind of having the aqua kind of tealy shades with the orange and the brown and that chocolatey brown, but it just works, and it's just, yeah, it's really pretty. The only critique I've got about this and the next one I'm going to show you is just that they needed more shimmers, because that's where it's at for this brand. They have, bar none, the best shimmer formula, and I think a lot of people agree with me on that. We don't always necessarily need everything to be sparkly, holochrome, you know, multi-chromes. We want shimmers that are really impactful and glossy and easy to apply, that don't crease, and that just go on for days. I mean, if you swatch these, you can literally drag one swatch down your arm and it's like one swipe opaque. They're just the best quality. They're pigment rich packed. They're just, yeah, incredible. And this is just a beautiful palette. The artwork as well on the front is just gorgeous, really suits the palette. Love it. The other one I've got that's spooky is the Bad Witch Club palette. I love this one. I love the names in there. They're like such a funny play on words for the names. This is definitely a purple, green, blue colour story, really, with a pop of coral and red. I've done a really nice look with this reddish tone. I haven't played in the blues much. Blue isn't really my thing. I probably should force myself to do that a bit more. Again, you've only got 3 shimmers. I think it would have been nice to have more. I don't know what we would swap out though, because I love all of it, really. And as I say, blue isn't really my thing, but I can appreciate that blue is the colour story in this palette. So yeah, I don't know which one I'd swap out to change it to a shimmer, but I just am greedy for their shimmers because they're just so good. And then we're on to Melt now. You guys know I've got a total love affair with Melt. Melt is, I would say, my favourite brand of all time. I just have to have just about everything they release. I've got all of their palettes, got most of their lipsticks. Yeah, I've got a lot of Melt. So this is the Vida and Muerte palette. So when you put them together they form a skull, and this was their Day of the Dead release, and I think it was 5 years ago now. This is how long ago it was. They did bring back the Muerte, which is this side, but they've never brought back the Vida, which is this one. So the Vida only has a couple of shimmers, it's mostly matte. I love the gradient though, that it goes red and then into like your neutrals and browns and then into green. It's really easy to work out what looks you might do. As I've said before, I love a red eyeshadow, so yeah, this one's super pretty. But for most people, myself included, the Muerte is more special. I think when this came out, we just hadn't seen a colour story like this. It's so dark. I mean, the shades for Melt always seem to come out more dark on the eyes than they even look in the pan, and they look dark already, don't they? But I hadn't at the time when I bought this got a navy, and that's a fantastic navy. I love the sort of teal navy blue into red, and yeah, it's just an unexpected colour story that still to this day is pretty unique, I think. So if you've got it, definitely hang on to it, because it's something really special. Just the artwork on it is just gorgeous. I do also have their Beetle Juice palettes. I bought the entire PR kit for Beetle Juice when it came out. These were super special. You had like almost like a film cell inside for the slip that was in there. So this one's the Recently Deceased palette. So it's your purple and green and yellow leaning palette. Not my favourite of the two though. Much prefer the other one. The other one was the Waiting Room, and I love this. These are my tones. If I could just only wear like one colour story, this would be it. I just love dark kind of raspberry pinks. I love red, I love grey, black, a bit of white for the inner corner or the brow bone. I'm good. I don't really need too many other colours. Maybe some purple and I'm happy. So this was my dream colour story when it came out. There's a couple of shades that are pretty similar. Like those two are quite similar next to one another when they're on the eyes. It's just a difference in intensity between the two of them. And the two greys are quite similar. So we maybe could have created it down and made it an 8 pan the same as the Recently Deceased palette. It would have been nice to have that uniformity there, because I don't think we actually needed all of the shades that are in here. But I can forgive it because I absolutely love the colour story. I've also got the Halloween Town palette. I bought both of the collections. They're up on my top shelf up there. I'll show you the other one when we're in that season, but I thought the Halloween Town one was perfect for this video. It's got lenticular packaging, but also really like off-kilter kind of shape packaging, which I love. And I love how kind of chaotic all of the shades are presented. I think it just looks like sort of the fairy lights of Halloween Town, and yeah, it's just really beautiful. Yeah, perfect array of colours in here to do kind of a Sally look, I think. I've just bought a Spirit jersey that's got Sally on it, and I really need to play with this again so I can wear that in a video, because it's so bright and colourful. I don't think I'm wearing it anywhere else but on YouTube, so I really need to use this before Halloween is over so I can show you my Spirit jersey, because it's beautiful. But yeah, I love this one. And then hot off the press, I've bought the Universal Monsters collection. So this is the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein palette, which should have been Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's Monster, surely. So I think they got that wrong, but the packaging's really beautiful on this. It's plastic, but really, really heavy and kind of transparent, but reminds me a little bit of the packaging from the Ghost palette from the Hourglass palettes, if you remember that years back. But the shades are super glimmery when you see it real, so I've got high hopes for these shimmers in here. This is neutral enough to wear on the daily for me, and I really love the colour story in it, and I can see lots of looks in this one. I'm really excited for it. I've also got the Creature from the Black Lagoon quad. This has got 3 mattes and a satin, and I just love the tones of this. I think that's going to be super beautiful as blush. I love the fact that it hasn't got like that bone shade in there. It's got something a bit different to go with it, and I love how deep it is. I think it really suits the vibe as well. Like if you look at the colours they've chosen and then look at the outside packaging, it's just exactly what you'd expect to see a Creature of the Black Lagoon quad to be. So yeah, really excited for that as well. I will be doing a video on the full collection. I'm going to film that next weekend. So what brand have I not covered? Well, it's Glamlight, of course. Now, there was a time when I only had one Glamlight palette, which was the Cake palette, and then I decided to treat myself to these, the Scooby-Doo palettes, and that just kick-started my love affair with this brand. Sort of love affair and hate at the same time, because every time a Halloween collection comes out, it's a scramble to get it. I'm having an absolute nightmare at the moment, just as a side note, getting the Halloween 2. Stayed up till 1 in the morning in the UK, which was the launch time on Friday into Saturday, and wanted to get the PR box and the knife mirror. Added the PR box to my cart, the knife mirror wasn't showing, kept refreshing the page for like nearly 2 hours, it didn't show, so I was like, well, the PR box is going to sell out, I'll just buy it. And then I woke up in the morning, had a look, and there's the knife mirror there with the PR box still there. Could have bought them together, but the shipping's going to cost me £11 more now. So I posted on my stories actually, and to give them their due, Miss Giselle saw the story and DM'd me and explained how it happens. It's because of Shopify's restrictions to certain countries. They'll identify that certain products can't be shipped to certain countries and it has to be overridden. So I think it's something they're working on, but it's super frustrating, particularly if you're in the UK. It seems to be a problem because it doesn't seem to happen for other countries. But, you know, we're one of our own anyway, aren't we, with the whole Brexit palaver. But, yeah, so I was super impressed that she DM'd me. I thought that was really, like, nice to get an explanation. And then I've emailed the customer services. They can't refund shipping, but they will cancel the entire order so I can order it all. I'm just hoping it's all in stock by the time they get back to me, because I've said that's what I want to do, but I'm still waiting. But that's a side note. For every collection they do, you know, it's super hyped and people really want it. So, and I'm no exception. So this one's the Scooby-Doo. This is a Raggy, and I love the layout of these. I've got some more in this layout that I'm going to show you as well. I love that you've only got 10 shades and that you've got the mattes on the bottom, the shimmers on the top. And I've not used this one actually, so I really need to. It's very similar in vibes to the It's Freaking Bats palette from Shroud and Batty Bean in terms of colour story, and so I've always mainly gravitated to that if I wanted these colours, but I really do need to use this. It is gorgeous. Also got the Creeps and Crawls. I think this is a bit more unique. I love the packaging on these actually, because they feel like that sort of soft touch cardboard, the quality, you know. But yeah, it's purples, isn't it? Purples and greens, they're my jam. And very, very deep. I mean, there's not too much lightness in this palette, is there? You're going to get a very dark, deep, gothic-y kind of look out of this. Really should use it. I haven't used it, as I say, so need to. One that I have used, and I think is probably one of my favourites though, isn't really a Halloween palette, but it's a horror movie. It came out for Valentine's a couple of years ago, but it's the Chucky Crazy in Love. They've only just restocked the PR box. It's got that lenticular packaging that I love. Their packaging, for the price that they charge, I don't know how they do it, because they've got to pay for the IP, you know, to be able to collaborate with the movie or the TV show, whatever it is they're doing, and then create packaging like this, which is so stunning and quite often has its own like little box to keep it in as well. And then to have the quality of shades that they do, it just shows you what other brands are really charging in terms of like bumping prices up. But this is gorgeous. This is gothic, isn't it? This is really like deep, dark, sultry. That's the sort of looks. You're going to get anti-Valentine's out of this one for sure. I've used it once on my channel, really enjoyed the quality of it and the look that I achieved with it. And yeah, it's one of my absolute favourites in my collection in terms of colour story. I think there is enough variations in tone, but it's still very like grayscale and dark and like plummy, aubergine-y, all of the gorgeous, delicious shades that I love. This one is super special as well. This is the Ghostface Lives palette, again with the lenticular packaging. And this is what I mean, they're using the same format for a lot of their palettes, and I love that. Very reflective on the background there. When this was first announced, I was like, how much can you do with this, because it's all grey? But it really isn't. When you see it real, there's so many shifts in it, like this shade here shifts to like a green, you won't probably be able to see on camera. But there's quite a blue tone to some of these shades. There's more of a like taupiness to some of them. You know, there's a lot of variation when they're on the eyes compared to how it looks in the palette. And I know they got criticised for not having a red in here, but I actually think that was genius, because the blush is red, so you can use that on your eyes as well, that came with this collection. And I love that they've just kept it pretty monochromatic. It's special. Staying with Chucky, I've also got the Good Guys palette. Only recently picked this one up in a sale. I think I only paid about $10 for it, something like that. And this is like all your sort of toy box colours, like bright kind of primary colours, isn't it? And yeah, super playful and fun. It's the sort of other side of the coin to the other Chucky palette that I showed you. So could play quite well together, I think, to just give us some variation. But yeah, I thought it was super fun. I didn't feel the need to pick it up straight away, but I'm happy to have it. I've also got the Camp Crystal Lake palette, so the Friday the 13th palette. I've not dipped into this one. The colour story in this one is really cool because it's got like a dinginess to it, but a lot more variation as well in terms of the colours that are in here, but while still staying very faithful to the theme in the movie. And then last but not least, I've got the Nightmare on Elm Street palettes. So this is the green one, very swampy, earthy kind of colours, really pretty. Not used it yet, need to. And then the Dream Master palette, which is the red and black and silver and grey one, which, you know, no prizes for guessing which is my favourite. I love both of these actually because I love green eyeshadow and I love red, so I think this is my favourite of all of them, and it's my favourite horror movie out of the ones that they've covered as well. So yeah, that is all of my Halloween palettes. I think there was 52 palettes here, and I'm not planning on picking up any more, but you never know. Depends what else comes out. Or I will be, of course, picking up the Trick or Treat collection when that comes out, whatever it looks like, I'm having it. And once I've sorted out the whole Halloween 2 debacle, I'll have that come, but it will be after Halloween by the time I get it. I think they were very late, Glamlight, in announcing and getting these Halloween palettes to us. But I'm super excited every time they drop a Halloween launch. I can't wait to see what the reveal is going to be, what products are going to be included and how it's going to be packaged. They've really got something special going on. So there we have it, guys. That was all of my Halloween palettes today. I hope you've really enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed creating it. I love talking about eyeshadow palettes and I love watching other people's collections. So I know these are popular videos with you guys, and although I've done one of these pretty much every year since I've started, I think I've always got something I can say additionally about the palettes, and I've always brought new ones into my collection. So these videos just get longer and longer, of course, but I know I've put up a video of my entire collection at one point. I can link that for you if you want to see it. It was before I got some of these, and that was around about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and I couldn't believe how many people would sit there and watch for that amount of time. But I do. If I find palette collection videos, I'm obsessed, and I'll just carry on watching. I'll get down a rabbit hole of watching everybody's. So I didn't do a fall one, and I wanted to make sure I definitely did a Halloween one, and I will be doing a winter and Christmas one as well. But thank you so much for watching this one. Hope you're keeping safe and well and enjoying spooky season, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye guys.